Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Wellness Wednesday. Today, we are here with a group of survivors and ostomates. We are gearing up for Ostomy Awareness Day coming up this Saturday. And so I will kick off our Share Your Story portion of this panel with Evan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Evan Cantwell. I'm from Gainesville, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. in the suburbs. I'm a 20-year rectal cancer survivor, stage 3. And back in 1999, Memorial Sloan Kettering, they saved my life with double ostomies. So I had a cystectomy and a total colectomy. So I've been thriving, I'd say for the last 10 years, last 5 years, actively sharing my story. Fight CRC ambassador back in 2015. So I've been able to meet a lot of inspiring fellow ostomates and survivors and thrivers and caregivers. And I'm so happy to be a part of this conversation.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I am Kimberly Holiday Coleman, otherwise known as Cancer Warrior Colostomy Queen. And I was diagnosed in 2015 of July with stage 2 rectal cancer. And much like Evan, I had a life-saving procedure when I had a bowel perforation and obstruction after my first rounds of chemo and radiation. So I have a almost 4-year ostomy, and her name is Toodles, formerly known as Fred. And my advocacy with ostomies and cancer awareness just began as I began rehabbing my body and my spirit and, just reclaiming my life, like after cancer and stuff. And so I've been able to travel and do burlesque and show my ostomy on stages around the world and the country and write books and, do all of that. It's been a blessing. So it's great to be here. And I love being an ostomate. It's a blessing. Saved my life.
Hi, everyone. I'm Simon Ross. I'm from Connecticut. I was diagnosed with rectal cancer at the age of 34, just under 6 years ago now. I went through the typical cancer treatments. I did radiation, chemotherapy, and then I had a temporary ileostomy. After a few complications that happened with the ileostomy, I then had a few more surgeries, another ileostomy, and then after about a year and a half later, I then ended up with a permanent colostomy. I've never let it stop me. It's a bag that saved my life. I am extremely happy with everything that I went through and what I've come on the end of it, out of it. And I've never let the bag stop me from doing anything I've wanted to do.
Okay, I think I'm up next. It's Mel Fernandez, and I live in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was diagnosed with stage 3C rectal cancer, and that was just about 4 years ago, at which time I ended up with a surgery and I came out with 2 ostomies. So I actually have a colostomy and an ileal conduit urostomy. So I got 2 for the price of 1 all at one go, and adapted to life pretty quickly with using 2 different ostomies, and have since that point gotten very used to them and live a very full life, trying my best to play golf and do everything I can that I was doing prior to the life-changing surgery that I did have. So continuing on, and it might have actually improved my putting game because I find I'm over the ball a little bit more, but that's to be debated.
I'm Allison Rosen from Houston, Texas, and I am a stage 2 colorectal cancer survivor and ostomate. Much like everybody else here, I went through my treatment very similar to Simon. I had a temporary ileostomy originally, was reversed, had complications, had a temporary ileostomy again, and ultimately ended up with a permanent ileostomy about 3.5 years ago. I'm 8 years cancer-free, and the past 3 years have been the best years of my life with my ostomy. Like Kimberly, mine has a name. It's Phil. FILL. It was a group of young adult survivors on actually a surfing trip that helped me name it and become more confident in my own body with this ostomy. And so I think, just like everybody else, I'll reiterate, my life has been better because of it. I have not let it stop me from doing anything. I went skydiving for Cancer Survivors Month, surfing, rock climbing. It gave me my life back, and I'm grateful for that. So I really tried to spread awareness about the I guess preconceived notion of ostomies, because if they didn't exist, I wouldn't be alive right now. So I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you everyone for sharing. We are going to move on to the Q&A section. So if you guys have an answer, just pop on in. If multiple people have answers, just go one after the other. So this is kind of a two-part question. What are your tips for someone preparing for an ostomy surgery? How long did it take you to recover?
So tips-wise, it seems like a long time ago, and I kind of had 3 different ostomy surgeries, of which I knew going into. So unlike others who maybe had emergency, it was a little bit difficult. I think one of the things that I was able to do was actually talk to the nurse and the doctor about positioning and where the stoma was going to be. So for myself, I've got it above my belt line. And I knew from my first ostomy what that would mean for the second ostomy and the third ostomy. For women, I think it's quite common to have it below the waistline as well. That's something that you really do want to think about. Mentally, one of the things I remembered when I first spoke to my stoma nurse was she said to me, "Have I ever had children?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Okay, so you've never dealt with crap before." I have now since had children, but there was that mental side of it where it was like, actually, no, I've never really had to deal with dealing with my own feces and things like that before. So it's not a big thing now, but it was just something at the time. It was just, oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Post-surgery, I think I had 2 different things. One, I had an issue where, because I'd had previous surgeries, I actually had, in one case, a hole where my previous stoma had been, and it was the size of a tennis ball. And with that, I meant I had to pack that, and the other side was I'm still got this active ostomy. And so it was always a little bit unique for me. But the very first time I remember looking down there, it was a shock. I'm sure everyone here will remember just looking down and going, oh my God, what is this? What do I do? But it wasn't mental strength. It was just taking a breather, looking down and thinking, well, hold on, this is it. Let me look at it. And I had a see-through bag, and I just watched it. I just let it see. And the body is an amazing thing. And the fact of the matter is, we've got this tiny part of a stoma sticking out of our body, and you can see how it works and everything about it. And that actually calmed me down a lot, being able to see it in action. I don't know if that's helpful in any shape or form, but that's just kind of some of my unique experiences.
I think some advice that I have would be, there are so many companies, so many different types of bags. There's 2-piece, there's 1-piece, there's multiple, there's so many different products that really spending the time calling and talking to the people on the other end of the line at the companies, because most of the time they're ostomy nurses and they're just there to help you. Taking advantage of all the samples, trying to find the best appliance and bag that works for you. Everybody is unique. Like Simon, I've had 3 different. This is my final stoma, and it's different. Every appliance that I've worn each time has been different based on the size and the shape and location of my stoma. So I think, once the shock had worn off, I really spent a lot of time investing in figuring out the best appliance for me and using the resources that were available. Also, I am a part of United Ostomy Associations. They have a support group. They have 4 local support groups in Houston. So I think trying to find a support group, if you think that would help you, has been really helpful to me. a lot of the people in that support group have had ostomies for 30, 40 years. So I definitely was the youngest by far, but they were a wealth of knowledge and definitely gave me a lot of information and made me feel more confident in my body and what I was going to be living with for the rest of my life.
Yes, in terms of, I second everything Simon and Allison have said. In terms of timeline and healing, so I would say it took me years to get back to physically I'm 23 at the time. I was in really good shape before the surgery. But in terms of just being able to sit, and now I do yoga almost daily, but I remember signing up for a yoga class like months after, and I physically just, couldn't sit. But as you develop more of your core over the years, I liken it to what we're going through right now in terms of dealing with my insecurities and anxieties about, COVID-19. So just going into a classroom recently with dancers, I was photographing, like that for me was really anxiety ridden because everyone's breathing hard, everyone's moving. Meaning it's just taking each activity slowly and what you're comfortable with. I did go kayaking that summer of my, after my surgery, a month after. I talked to my stoma nurse. Your stoma nurse will be your best friend. Highly recommend not just listening one-on-one with her, but having, if you're fortunate to have a caregiver to listen as well, taking notes. What that stoma nurse has to say will go a long way. Just the little tips of, how you cut your stoma, or not your stoma, your wafer. I wear a 2-piece, so even just working with a 2-piece versus a 1-piece, all those things go a long way. And really just getting over, for me, it was just getting over myself because there were a couple accidents just with the appliance itself. And the first time it happened, I'm literally just like panic ridden, but it's just, hey, that's just part of it. Like, don't take it personal. It's just, you're learning, how to deal with this new appliance on your body. And eventually I forget, and this is part of my problem too, I forget that I'm wearing them. So sometimes I'm really active and just remember. So it's just dealing with it. And hydration is another really serious issue for me because I'm a double ostomate. So I didn't really learn more about hydration until I'd say in the last 10 years. So that's really important to read up on that and ask questions. So.
Okay, we will move on to the next question. Allison talked a little bit about this, but did you find the right ostomy supplies right away, or did you have to try a few different things? And then where is your favorite place to go for ostomy supplies?
I'm happy to talk a little bit more about it. I want everyone else to have a chance to talk as well. I think, like Evan said, my stoma nurse really gave me a list of all the companies, and I called each and every single one of them and tried each appliance. And if it caused any sort of leak, I moved on. And then I just, it's trial by error, and you have to be really patient with yourself and your body. I think that I have worn Hollister, I've worn Coloplast, and I've worn Convatec. So I can't say one company is better than the other. It's just, again, very personal. It's just whatever preference you prefer. I like long-term wear. So because I'm really active, I want a more sturdy bag and appliance. So that's sort of how I chose ultimately what would be my forever bag.
I think one of the key things, so when I was in the hospital, came away, I think it was a Convatec bag, and it was nice, it was safe, it was what I knew, what the stoma nurse had taught me, and it was just nice and easy, especially for the first few weeks. I didn't want to change anything too radical. As I adjusted to it mentally and physically, it was okay, now I've tried to start experimenting. And it's not just trying for one time, one at a time. It's try it over and over, try it in a few different scenarios. It's about can you comfortably change it in a different environment? Not when you're just at home in your own bathroom, but you want to be able to have that ease of change if necessary. I've settled on a two-piece, absolutely love them. Most of the time I'll get 6 to 7 days out of it, and that's with me running 3 times a week or doing some sort of exercise and sweating. But there will be some times when I know, and you kind of get a feel of when it could be time to change. The other thing I do whenever I see the stoma nurse is ask about new kits, new things that are coming through, because I want to stay on top. I want to know what's coming through, what could be the best thing for me going forward.
I would agree with everything Allison and Simon said there. Just don't be afraid after you get in a routine to just try to rotate and try in some other products. You take use of the samples that people will send you, because at one point I was using the same bag for both my urostomy and colostomy, the same brand, and found that using different things over time gave me better comfort and wearability. So echo that sentiment, and also just rely, as they've also said, on the stoma nurses. A lot of them have a lot of experience with how your stoma actually is. My urostomy is a little more inverted, so it's a little bit more of an innie, if you will. And so I needed much more of a convex or dish to my bag on the urostomy side, whereas the colostomy side is much flatter and didn't need that. So, that was definitely a learning process for me to take a little bit of time and figure out what fit the best, what gave me the best seal, and to not have leaks. But understand that you're going to have some growing pains, but keep at it, keep experimenting, and you'll come out with the right answer.
Yeah, and outside of the brands, I've only tried 2, but regardless of the brands, I think it's the little tiny things that protect your skin that go so long, because this is just about an adhesive sticking to your skin and protecting that skin at the same time from being irritated. So just asking about those, whether it's the spray that you're washing with beforehand, or whether or not you're taking it off in the shower to wash and get air and water. Air, water, soap, it depends on the soap, but the spray that I use can be used on, the stoma. And then the protective stoma adhesive powder really does protect around the stoma. So just those little tiny, and then the paste, oh my gosh, the stoma, what would we do without stoma adhesive paste on the on the wafer? Because I have a 2-piece, I do that as well. That really, I think that adds like an extra day. I don't have any science to back that up, but it really does protect the skin. Just knowing these little tiny things might take like a year or 2, because we're so afraid sometimes to have these dialogues or conversations. But imagine if you can save a year or 2 years of that irritated skin or suffering of someone that's trying to, learn how to adapt this.
Yes, I wanted to share because my wound ostomy nurse helped me after my surgery. My ostomy was initially supposed to be just a 6-week temporary, but because of the severity of my perforation, they asked me to keep it for 2 years. So what I went into it thinking it's going to be a temporary thing ended up being my recovery was about six weeks initially. So I had a wound ostomy nurse that came to my home, a physical therapist that came to my home for 6 weeks. So what I would advise is to take, like everyone else is saying, I'm just echoing, that they try different things. And I think we also don't realize when we get our ostomy and I forgot the gentleman that was saying when we first look down and we see it, it's like this donut size, right? And so the products change as your stoma size shrinks. So that's something to keep in mind. Your initial supplies will not be your last supplies merely because of shrinkage and healing. So that's the perfect time to try all kinds of bags. So my ostomy nurses, they kind of loaded me up with all kinds of things. And so it was cool because it allowed me to make mistakes and also learn how to cut the wafer, as Evan was saying, just all of those things. So the wound ostomy nurse is wonderful. And if you can talk to your patient navigators and ask them if that's a possibility, a lot of people didn't know that you can have them come to your home for, a period of time, if depending on how you, fared with your surgery. So that's another resource.
Thank you, guys. Let's talk about nutrition. Is there any restrictions that you guys have as far as eating? As Evan mentioned, hydration is key. Like, how do you guys stay hydrated? What are some tips when it comes to nutrition?
So I think when you first get your stoma, there are some very good guidelines that you need to adhere to. There are certain types of food. Then as you become a little bit more experienced and your whole intestine starts to mature and adjust, you can then start to bring in new types of food and some of the older types of food. As it stands right now, and this is for 3.5 years after my final colostomy, I eat everything and anything. I've never stopped. Like, there are things they say you definitely can't eat. Popcorn. Well, I eat popcorn now. I just chew it very, very carefully and make sure make sure there are no potential risks that come out of it. The thing I would note is that there are some foods that will come out a lot faster than others, and that's always quite interesting. The one thing I do have an issue with, and something I was never told about is if I take a pill, I have to take a dissolvable pill because otherwise they'll come out whole and I won't get any of the goodness out of it. So it's something to be wary of, that it can go through your system very, very quickly. So there are different types of things. So I have allergies, so I take a Zyrtec every day. If I don't take the gel or the dissolvable one, it will come out and it won't do me any good. So that's not necessarily nutrition, but it's something to be aware of. But when it comes to food, it's just like everything. Take your time, be patient, and very slowly try things. But with an ostomy, I can drink, eat, and try to do whatever.
I've been on the opposite end of that experience. I did really well with my ostomy at first because you're eating the soft foods and all of that, and I was still on chemo, so I wasn't eating a lot anyway. But once I finished chemo, started healing and incorporating regular foods, I ended up having blockages where I was hospitalized like 4 times in 1 year with severe blockages, and eventually finding out that I suffered from chronic constipation, obstipation. And so having to navigate my ostomy with food and blockages. So it's like I'm always, and I'm almost 4 years in November as well. And so I'm still working to find that right balance because, that's a weekly thing for me, that I have a blockage of some kind. I've learned how to navigate them, but it's still, that's one of the things that I wish was more, that was addressed more, was the foods that we can eat. Because, I do know a lot of people that can eat a lot, but what if you're someone like me who's more dry, constipated? So those are some of the issues that I found and that I'm just still working through. But yeah.
Yeah, so just speaking from an ileostomy, so no colon at all, I have not had good luck with onions or olives. I've been hospitalized both for, like, one time the onions were hidden in the hamburger and I didn't even know till afterwards. So I stay away from that. In terms of hydration, it really depends on, for me, I live in Virginia, so we have real humid summers. So my activity levels just varies with, the season. And my drinking level varies with that as well. I definitely take electrolytes with my water in the morning, sometimes at night, just depending upon how much I sweat. And believe it or not, it's really basic, but measuring your output really is, actually, I'm not gonna give medical advice, but in terms of figuring out if you're hydrated, is just looking at the color and clarity and smell of your pee. That's what I've read and heard time and time again. So that's what my basis is, day in, day out.
So a few things that that I've learned, and I think I've sort of had a combination. I also have an ileostomy, so I always have water by me. Always. I've ended up hospitalized because of hydration issues and had to get fluids because I can't keep things in. Two quick tips: a food diary really helped me. My ostomy nurse told me when I first got it to start writing the things I was eating as I introduced more, I guess, vegetables or different things in my diet to see what the output was. So I'd write down different things. Like I can't have corn, I can't have seeds, I can't really have nuts. I have had one blockage. And so I'm careful with what I eat, but I do almost eat virtually anything. I just chew, like Simon said, chew very, very well. But that food diary really helped me figure out what caused different consistencies of my output. And so different things that I've been told that have been lifesavers have been bananas and marshmallows. Both of those, when I have maybe a more liquidy output, help thicken the stool for me and help prevent that dehydration. So even though I don't love marshmallows, I always have the jumbo marshmallows in my kitchen along with bananas. Those are just two. There's other things like the Brat Diet, banana rice, applesauce, and toast always can help thicken my stool if I need it. And that's what I really ate right after I had my surgery. But the stoma nurse is the one that told me about the marshmallows. And I know other people have heard that as well. And it's just adaptability. But I echo what Evan said. I live in Texas and it's really hot and humid. And I always have water, no matter if I'm working out or not. I always have water because my body can't really retain as much as I would like. So I'm always drinking.
My next question is will I be able to continue my daily activities, travel, exercise, sleeping, showering, going back to work? Does anybody have any advice for that?
Quite simply, yes. Oh, sorry, you go, Alison.
I was gonna say, simply put, I'm not living, I'm thriving with my ostomy. So I do everything that you mentioned: work, travel. There actually is an ostomy bathroom in Tokyo, Japan, that I was pleasantly surprised about when I visit my brother. So like, there's an actual sink and place to change your ostomy in a special bathroom. So I live life to the fullest, and the ostomy has not stopped me from doing anything.
Agree completely. Even the 2 months after my final surgery, I learned to ski. I was adamant it was going to not stop me from doing anything. I play soccer, I play rugby every week still, and like rugby I get tackled on my stoma, so I try to stay as active as I possibly can, and yeah, it doesn't have to stop you. I know people who, if you go into the office, you could be paranoid about it. There's nothing to be. You can have wraps and things that can help conceal it, hide it under suits, make sure that it's there. I've heard of stories of where they can be noisy, they can be very active, and it can get quite embarrassing. I've been in a boardroom where it decided to make a loud noise. I can't control it, but I can at least control the room and say, oh yeah. I can either explain why, or I've also got belts that sometimes help cover the noise and subdue it. So there's nothing to be embarrassed about when it comes to that, but at the same time, it won't stop me.
Yeah, I fully agree. At the beginning, it was just a little bit of a learning process, and be prepared for accidents to happen. So, whether that means just having an extra pair of clothes with you, be it whatever it is, have it in your trunk, have an extra shirt in my desk drawer at work, just in case, that odd time you might have something get really active and have an accident, you have the option to have a backup plan and not be embarrassed, and just realize that it's part of life, and worse things could really happen to you. So just be ready for those types of eventualities, and just don't let your stoma slow you down at all.
Yeah, I would agree. Um, I waited until like a year after I had my stoma to wear my swimsuit. And the first time I did that, I had traveled to Jamaica. So that was a big deal. And, you know, I didn't have my husband with me. I traveled with my girlfriends. And so it was like anxiety, bit anxiety ridden. But, you know, I was able to do it. And that's the first time I decided to show my stoma in public. I jumped off of a 8-foot cliff, you know, holding my stoma. Please don't do that unless you're okay with that. You know, I've been able to travel to Australia by myself, and, you know, just once you start doing it, once you take that first step, and that first step really, when I took my shirt off that day in Jamaica, you know, like shaking whether I would show this ostomy or not for the very first time, you know, I still remember that feeling. I'll always be grateful for it, because it was that moment that I realized that I was no longer I wasn't going to feel ashamed about my ostomy, because it helped keep me alive. And I knew the battle that I fought to be there. Even on that beach, me being there was a miracle. I wasn't supposed to be there. So once I got all of that in my mind and let it go, I took my shirt off, and I've been taking my shirt off ever since, in a great way. You know, and so traveling is just a part of, I've been able to ice skate and do a Rugged Maniac 5K, and, you know, things I thought I would never be able to do again, because, you know, you have an ostomy, you just assume that we're supposed to go hide in some dark hole, you know, somewhere. And that's the antithesis of the life that I've been living in. Sounds like everyone else. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. My attitude has obviously changed over the decades. The the first decade, actually, I'd just say the first couple of years. So the ostomy nurse recommended this pink, really expensive medical tape that would waterproof around your wafer, and I would like meticulously cut that and frame it before I take a shower every day. And now, I mean, I just jump in the shower. I've never used it ever since, but I remember back in the day, I would be so meticulous. Even when I would change, it would take me like 40 plus minutes just to change the appliances. And now it's kind of an afterthought, and maybe it's under 10 minutes. But yeah, so the attitudes definitely adjust, and psychologically, emotionally, that for me took a lot longer. Last year I posed for the Colon Club. I think that was empowering to just kind of show, you know, my body and accept my body for what it is, and what these ostomies have allowed me to do. So, and then talking about it too. So I think that's important. The first decade going to the beach with my friends, I would literally like hold something in front of, you know, like wrap the towel over my ostomies or something, or and they really hadn't seen it since until recently. So yeah, attitudes will change, and you'll grow into it and have hopefully a more accepting, you know, gracious attitude.
Okay, everybody, last question. Any final words of advice for someone that's going into surgery or recovering from surgery or just trying to figure everything out? Any final words?
I would just say be patient. It's going to take some time. I don't think anyone on the panel, as they've spoken, grew into it immediately. It's a process. And I think, you know, just be patient and use all the resources around you. Especially, I think every single person here mentioned stoma nurse. All the ones I've seen have had the most experience. And at one point, I was even just relying on my colorectal surgeon, and the stoma nurse said, "Why didn't you ask me?" Because they do the surgery and they're gone. I deal with stomas every day. So that really stuck with me. So just rely on those people that deal with these things every day. Find a support group, whatever it is, and just keep moving forward.
I guess I would like to say that real, like, realizing that as we grow with our stomas, that we've also lost something. And that was the way that our bodies functioned originally. And so grieving is a part of that process. You know, it's a part of going on and living, you know, and grieving the parts that we've lost, and that our body will not function exactly the same as it was before. You know, it's a brand new experience and it can be better. It's just different. So I agree, like doing art therapy, cancer therapy, just again, I love the patient navigators because they just gave me so many tools. You know, my family even did cancer therapy. So, you know, and ostomy, you know, they learned how to change it. So those type of things, I agree, you know, and just having an attitude of gratitude, just, you know, for each small thing, you know, and eventually it will turn into this really wonderful big thing, you know. And also my last thing is to seek out those, you know, like I followed a lot of people on social media before I had my ostomy, so I could have an idea of what life would be like. And I'm thankful to the people that came before me, because their bravery and courage in showing their ostomy gave me hope that I would have like a normal life, even though I thought I would only have my ostomy for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And I've opted to now keep it permanently. So I've chosen that. And, you know, it's in part because of this community. So get, you know, become a part of the UOAA, fight CRC, you know, just join everything you can and utilize those support groups, because you'll just realize that life is so much richer with an ostomy.
I think exactly what was just said. You're not alone. I really looked around and thought I was the only one with an ostomy, because a lot of times they're hidden and you have no idea if you look to your right, you look to your left, if someone has one for whatever reason or not. So realizing that you're not alone, and not being afraid to reach out and ask questions. I think if I had not had someone to talk to and ask questions besides my stoma nurse, someone else that had an ostomy, I would not be where I am today. You can't do it. You can't do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. So I think everyone on this panel, you know, I think we all have social media. I think you could follow all of us, ask any questions, reach out to Fight CRC or United Ostomy Association. If you want to talk to someone one-on-one, if you want to talk to a bigger group, like use our experience to help you heal and get to where we're at, because like everyone said, it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, that for me, patience, you know, Kimberly and Alison mentioned it, but at the same time as well, you will get frustrated, but don't let it get to you. Just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for another. You've seen on this call, we've all got differing things that have happened to us, and it's not always going to apply. You've got to be patient to try things out and experiment. And I found in just a couple of years, you know, 3.5 years, my body's changed. Evan, who's had it a lot longer, he's seen technology probably change with it, but also his body's changed with it. So you've got to be prepared to make those adjustments. Just because it worked a while ago doesn't mean it's going to be the same in a year's time.
Yeah, I would, excuse me, I would say we're so used to like a linear, straightforward path, whether it's with time or experience, and it really won't be linear. You'll take, you know, one step forward, and hopefully you're celebrating that step forward, whether you feel like you're alone, or hopefully you're reaching outside of that path and bringing someone along with you, whether it's your caregiver or family. But you'll take 2 steps back, and just having the patience that Mel mentioned and Simon mentioned goes so far. And a lot of times it's, for me, you know, trying to be patient with yourself. I would say I have more tendency to like be more of a giver and like take some time. I mean, your body is going through some radical things. So really pause. For me, not in terms of wallowing, but in terms of just figuring it out and having patience while you're trying to figure that out. And hopefully you're asking questions. The fact that you're listening to this right now goes a long way. So I think this will be recorded. So I don't know what that means technology-wise 5 years from now, but yeah, reach out. Facebook, social media, it all exists. So we're here to help.
Thank you for all of you guys for joining us today. And I thank everyone who's watching, and we hope that you'll join us in 2 weeks for more tips for wellness. Thank you, everybody.